So another concept I think is really important is we have a tendency, like spiritual people tend to look down on religious people, or atheists tend to really look down. But we talked a little bit about having a baseline morality. I think it's super important that we have to decide what our baseline morality is. And in my experience of hanging out with a lot of spiritual and religious people, and then kind of hanging out with, I don't know, normies, let's call them, or people who aren't into that, is that it's interesting. I saw so many great people and good people trying to be better people, because that's really all it is trying to grow and develop your virtue, let's call it. Are there like wolves in sheep clothing? Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's jerks, but they're few and far between, actually. I think the vast majority are good people just trying to be better people. And then you always get like somebody who does shady stuff or whatever here and there. With normal people, it's crazy. Being in regular society after kind of getting disillusioned with religion and spirituality and hanging out with people who didn't necessarily believe these things, it's crazy how much they can justify doing wicked stuff. I was at a barbecue one time hanging out with a bunch of people, and I was saying how, there's parts of religion that probably need to be dismantled. There's a lot of ego, and we talked about like the humbling yourself, you'll be exalted, and he who exalts himself shall be abased story. But it's amazing how much they can talk smack and then do wicked stuff, and not even blink an eye. A good example, at this barbecue, I was talking to a guy, and I was saying, maybe there are things that need to be dismantled, but I think if we did dismantle religion, people would literally eat each other. And he got super pissed, and he was like, no, man, that means you would eat people. You would do it because... And I'm like, no, I'm just saying from what I've seen. And he's like, no, man, people don't need it for morality. And then later on in the night, so I'm like, okay, fair enough, maybe, but I don't think so. I just, from human nature, people will do crazy things. If they think there's no consequences, a lot of people do a lot of crazy stuff. And so this guy, later on in the night, he was saying how he used to steal a lot. He was a single dad, and he used to steal a lot for his kid. And steal food and steal this and steal that. And he's like, well, I had to have food for my kid, so I just stole it. And I was like, no, but I had to. And I was like, no, but you didn't. You live in America, bro. There's food kitchens, and I know because I volunteered at some of those kitchens. We'll talk about helping others to help yourself in a coming up episode, but that you could have gone to the food kitchen. So it's a hurt to your pride, your ego. You got to take your kid to the food kitchen or to the food pantries where they give out like canned food and different things. There's so many alternatives to stealing. And that's basically it, is that people, the normal people who don't believe in any of this stuff or have any, really what it's about, like I say, is a good people wanting to be better. A lot of them will do super shady stuff, and you look at the world, the theft going on, the adultery, murder, people doing crazy things, and they justify it somehow or another. They can always find a way to justify it. And when we have this baseline morality, there's like no justification. That's kind of the beautiful thing. And there is a lot of madness in religion, don't get me wrong. And I'll address all that. I want to kind of stay on a positive love vibe right now. We'll get into some of the darker points as we go along further. But as I want it to be in love, I don't want these dark points, people to just, again, like throw out everything because there's a few dark points. And it's tough because I've done it and I know the depth of some of the darkness in monotheistic faith especially. And so it made me want to kind of just throw them out. And so I know how hard the struggle is. But and it was a beautiful journey in finding that, like, I just wanted to be virtuous. I realized, regardless of religion, there was or some kind of payoff or punishment or something. It's just something I like to do. And so It's amazing if you've never been with these communities. I'm telling you, there's a lot of great people. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, Jew, Muslim, Rastafarian, offshoots of Christianity, anything. There's going to be still some shady people in those groups, but for the most part, they're really good people trying to be better. And you kind of know where they're coming from and what they're not willing to do, even though some still do messed up things. For the most part, you kind of have an idea, and you can be a little more trusting because you know they're on this path and they hold these values to be sacred, and so they're going to not do it. But a lot of the people who aren't into that, they really, I've seen a lot of crazy stories and seen a lot of shade, gnarly stuff. So I think there is a value there in, doesn't necessarily have to be religion, but some kind of baseline morality that we can all agree upon as this is right. Well, there's Hammurabi's code. This is right and this is wrong. I don't think there's a lot of gray in that. Life, for the most part, is very gray. But I think there's right and wrong in this world. And when we start hurting others or doing shady things, then it's where the right and wrong, where the line is drawn. And I had a buddy growing up that liked to steal from corporations. Like, oh, they're big, soulless corporations, and so who cares? And they weren't always so bad, but I think, one, it's becoming what you despise. So if they steal, does it make it right for us to steal? But two, that's what caused a lot of this. They're not going to take the losses. The shareholders, they're not going to give the shareholders the losses, so they're going to cut more wages. It's the beginning of what the corporate world started to do to people. They started taking it out of people's paychecks, taking it out of benefits, taking it out of things that were for the workers now are being lost because they're not going to take the loss. They're not, let their stock prices drop. So they just cut benefits. And so it does cycle down to the everyday person, regardless of whether we think that it's like some big faceless corporation. Right now is a great example of the kids just robbing people blind, right? Going into these stores and stealing everything they can. Like, oh, well, it's corporate and it doesn't matter and whatever. No, it does, though, because those employees are going to get screwed even harder now. Stores are getting shut down. People are losing their jobs. So it's some kind of baseline morality. But in my experience, and people in those groups tend to be better people. I don't want to say better, because it's like the other people are bad people. I don't know necessarily that, but you kind of have a better feel for what they're capable of, what they're doing with their lives, and what they honor and respect. And what they cherish as sacred, these rules that they cherish as sacred, which make for a better world. We got to remember that it's all been tried. Nothing's new under the sun. And I think a lot of these rules that help get the world to grow are from these religious foundations. And look at the evolution of like humanity, how fast we've grown. And America, for all of its, we'll get into that too, for all its faults, has done a lot of great stuff on this Christian morality in the world too. They've done terrible things too, but they've done a lot of good for the world, spread a lot of goodness, and continue to give. I think America gives to 150 of 195 countries. People are like, what have they done for the world? Well, they give a lot to build infrastructure, to develop from like stone hut cultures to bigger, better electricity, medicine, plumbing, big one, plumbing, super important, hot running water, toilets, available clean drinking water. Well, it's so funny. I love in America that we get mad at people drink out of like the tap. Like, oh, it's all poison. I'm like, man, do you know how many people in the world still to this day would be amazed at a perfectly clean glass just out of a tap. Like, you don't have to go to the well. It's not muddy. It's not brown. It doesn't have parasite. Like, that's crazy. You could just hit a tap and get crystal clear water. That's amazing. You guys don't appreciate that. Enough people don't appreciate that in the world. I think, especially with the kids today, like what an amazing gift that is. Whether it's got fluoride in it, which we'll talk about all that kind of stuff too, but it's a big one. And so let's not disrespect people in spiritual and religious practices, nor should we disrespect those without it. But if you want to be around better people, if you want to have more hope for the world, being around those kind of people actually gives you a lot of hope, because you see a lot of people really trying to be better people. And you know how they're trying to be better people by whatever faith they're a part of. But it's a beautiful thing. And without it, people can kind of justify anything. It seems like without it, people can always find a reason why they're allowed to do what they do. And that's a really dangerous way of thinking, because in terms of right and wrong, there are, I think, some black and white lines. Murder, I think, is wrong. Murder being, and that's really what the Torah says, thou shalt not murder, is taking a life without cause. Like, killing is a different thing. If somebody's trying to kill you, you kill them back, it's fine. But, or not fine, but it's expected. Like, you can defend your own life. But to take someone's life for no cause, that's murder. That's a no-no. And that there's a very black and white line on that, I think. I don't think there's like grays in terms of that. You can't just go up and kill people, take their lives away, steal their life. So anyway, that's my observation from living so many years with spiritual, religious people, whatever, and hanging out with them and studying with them, whatever, and then going into the regular world, kind of becoming disillusioned after I learned so much, and the darkest ends of it, which are dark, don't get me wrong. I think we have a tendency to corrupt beautiful things, though, humanity. But it doesn't mean it's all bad, but some of them are pretty big. We'll get into those, but like I said, I want to do it with love. But there is beauty in that. And so if I wish people the blessing of, for those who are losing hope in humanity, and it's hard not to sometimes. The social media is so dark sometimes. We're so mean to each other, that go check out some kind of spiritual group. I love the Rastas. Like I said, Rastafari teach everything. Great, loving, one love culture, amazing lessons. They know the Psalms better than anyone I've ever met. I've seen them just recite crazy amount of Psalms. They study them regularly. And but anyone, go find a group and just go hang out. And there's a lot of, I went to so many different churches. I saw some that were so corrupt. There's a lot of like preachers, pastors, imams, and even rabbis that let some gnarly stuff slide or seem very involved, like it's in their all about their own self-interest. The beauty of Rastafari is there's no set doctrine, there's no real religious people per se, like that are heads of any kind of religion. Like there's Prophet Gad in 12 Tribes of Israel, and he's gone now. It's the organization Bob Marley was in. And the Bobos have somebody, but it's, for the most part, it's kind of, you just go do your thing, and you go around these people, and you see a lot of them, and there are cats that are still shade, but there's a lot of them that are just good dudes trying to be, and good women trying to be good people, and I love that. That's the most beautiful thing, all with a kind of a set rule book, baseline morality. So anyway, that's my wish, my blessing for everybody. They find that and learn to appreciate all those groups. And if you feel that the world is dark, go hang out with some people that are seeking the light, and I think you'll feel better, honestly. And you might go to your first shot and not appreciate it, or it might be shade, So don't give up. Keep looking. I went with a lot of people to a lot of places, and there was times I was like, this place feels dark. But I once went with this girl. I was hanging out with, she like worked at the Subway or something, and she's going to my gym, and the guy spent the whole time talking about how he needed a new house and that people need to donate, and he kept quoting all this stuff from Ezra about God's house and how he needs a new house. I remember being like, damn, and it was all these like poor people. She was Cambodian, I believe, and a really big Cambodian population in Long Beach. And it was like all these poor Cambodians and Hispanics and like Filipinos, and I remember just thinking, damn, and the dude was like a white dude, and he was just going off about how he needs a new house. And I'm like, man, everybody here probably needs a new house. But yeah, it was, and so there is shade. Don't get me wrong. And there are people that are in it solely for self-interest. And I really don't know. Like, I went one time. So, I mean, maybe the dude does a ton of good work. I don't know. But that, in that moment, I remember being like, eeh. Like, this dude is just the whole time for like an hour straight was just quoting scriptures about building God's house and then saying how he needs a new house and sent out the basket, I think, a few times. So, don't let those experiences taint the entire experience, because there's good and bad. Go check it out. I promise you it'll give you hope, because there are people out there really trying to do good by others and by the divine and in the world, and that are giving and sweet. Good people trying to be better. So anyway, I hope this helps. You can do this. Let's do this, people. Save the humans.
Trying to be a better man. Oh yeah. Trying to do the best I can. Oh yeah. And I'm gonna do right thing. Do right thing. No matter what they want to say. And I'm gonna still fight for you. Still fight for you.